Raise your hands if you sat in a doctor's office, listed out 3 things that are wrong with you, and watched them pick exactly one to deal with, because that's all the appointment time slot allows. Raise your hand if you've been told something was just aging when you knew that wasn't the full story. Yep, me too. Both hands, actually. I'm Debbie, a holistic nutritionist for 15 years now, and what that means is that I look at the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. Today, I want to talk about something that's not really a nutrition topic, except it completely is. Why an entire generation of us stopped trusting doctors. Not because we're anti-medicine, not because we've watched too many wellness reels, because we've lived it. We've sat through our own 7-minute appointments feeling like a checklist instead of a person. So let's actually talk about why that happened and what it means for how you take care of yourself, and where doctors still absolutely matter, because they genuinely do. So this one's not just Gen X being cynical. The math, it backs it up. The average doctor's visit in North America runs somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes, and a chunk of the studies actually put real face-to-face time closer to 7 or 8 minutes once you take the paperwork and typing onto the computer out of it. 7 minutes to explain what's going on with your body, get asked a couple of questions, and walk out with a plan. That's not enough time to understand a whole human being. It's enough time to match a symptom to a prescription. That's it. And that's not really the individual's doctor's fault, by the way. I want to be fair here. Most of them are stuck in a system built around volume, insurance codes, and appointment slots stacked back to back to back. They didn't design it that way, but we're the ones sitting here in the chair feeling like a number. So we notice it, we remember it, and eventually we stop expecting anything different. Here's the part about us about us specifically. We watched our parents go through this exact thing in the 80s and 90s, back when doctors were basically treated like gods and nobody questioned a word they said. Our parents' generation didn't ask for follow-up questions. They took the pill, they took the diagnosis, and they didn't push back. And a lot of us watched that not work. We watched our moms and dads get handed prescription after prescription for symptoms that never actually went away, because nobody was looking at what was causing them, what the root cause was of them in the first place. So we grew up a little more skeptical, a little more, wait, why does this pill treat the symptom and not the actual problem? And now we're the generation walking to appointments with a list of questions and a face our doctors probably don't love seeing, because we ask why, and why doesn't usually fit into the 7-minute time slot. I think the trust didn't break in one moment. It broke slowly, appointment after appointment. It broke every time someone brought up fatigue or brain fog or joint pain and got told that's just aging, instead of an actual conversation about what might be going on. It broke every time a legitimate health complaint got waved off because the visit was almost over. It broke every time the fix was another prescription instead of a single question about sleep, stress, or what someone's actually eating. None of that means doctors are the enemy. I want to be really clear about that, because I'm not here to tell you to skip your physical or ignore an actual medical emergency. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Doctors catch things that save lives. What I am saying is that the system doesn't leave a lot of room for the whole person conversation. And the one about why you're tired, why your joints ache, why you can't sleep, that gap is exactly where a lot of us got left to figure it out on our own. So this is where food actually comes in, and it's not small. What you eat is doing about 75% of the heavy lifting, and when it comes to how you feel all day. Energy, joint pain, sleep, mood, all of it traces back to what's on your plate way more than most people realize. That's not me saying skip the doctor and eat kale. Instead, it's me saying the piece that actually gets left out of the 7-minute appointment, the food, the movement, the stress, the sleep, is the piece that's within your control every single day. And it's usually the piece that nobody in the white coat has time to walk you through. And this isn't their fault, because in their 7 years of training, they get very little time for nutritional training. And that's just the way that the system is designed. And this is exactly why intentional movement matters here too, regardless of what your job looks like. If you're on your feet all day at work, that's not the same as intentional exercise. And it's not doing the same thing for your joints, your hormones, or your energy that real strength or movement practice does. Being tired from your job and being strong are two completely different things. And a lot of us confuse the two because we're exhausted by 6 p.m. and just assume that that means that we've done enough. So I've got my own version of this story, by the way. After I had my twins, I was dealing with a weak bladder, the kind of thing that nobody warns you about until you're standing there dealing with it. I brought it up and I was told to just do Kegels, and that they wouldn't even consider doing surgery until I was in my 50s or 60s. That was it. No referral to a pelvic floor therapist, because that wasn't even a thing back where I lived then. This was long before you could just look up something online and find a specialist in 20 seconds. Just an exercise I was supposed to figure out on my own, and years of living with it in the meantime. That's the gap that I'm talking about. A real common fixable problem handed a one-line solution and come back in 20 years because there wasn't time or a referral pathway or anyone whose job it was to actually walk me through it. So I get why we stopped assuming the system had the full answer, because sometimes it just doesn't. And you're the one left to fill in the rest. So here's what I'd actually do instead of just being frustrated with the system, because frustration alone, it doesn't fix anything. Go into your appointment with your list written down in order of what matters most, because you likely only get to cover 1 or 2 things anyway, so make them count, the things that matter most to you. Ask the follow-up question, even if it feels awkward, and even if you can see them glancing at the clock. Outside of that appointment, take back the piece that's actually yours to control every day. What you're eating, whether you're moving with intention, whether you're managing your stress instead of just pushing through it, that's not a replacement for medical care. It's what happens in the other 364 days a year that you're not in that office. Because honestly, a lot of what we've been told is just aging is actually years of nobody addressing the food, the movement, and the stress side of things. And that part, you don't need a 7-minute appointment for. You need to actually start paying attention to it. That's the real reason so many of us stop trusting the system blindly. Not because we stop believing in medicine, but because we grew up watching it and living it and realizing it doesn't always look at the whole picture. Sometimes it's a parent cycled through medication after medication. Sometimes it's you at a follow-up appointment being told to just wait it out. Either way, you walk away learning the same lesson, that nobody is coming to manage the whole thing for you. So you'd better start paying attention to the parts that you can control. So look at yours. Look at what you've been told to just live with, and start with the piece that's actually in your hands every single day. What you eat, how you move, how you manage your stress. That's not a replacement for good medical care. It's what fills the gap the medical care was never built to cover. Subscribe for more No BS nutrition advice, and I'll see you in the next one.